For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. I started off talking about we get weary, we get tired. Do you ever feel like you're just beating your head against the wall? You back up and you run at it, and nothing happens, and you back up and you run at it, and you do it over and over and over and over, and it seems like you're getting nowhere. I've heard it said a lot of times. I've experienced it. You've probably experienced. You're going along good, and it just feels like you hit a wall. And you can't get through that wall. But I'm going to tell you something. You hit that wall enough times, eventually it's going to crack. And eventually it's going to break. And eventually it's going to crumble. And you are going to go through. That's why he says, be not weary in well-doing. In due season. This gets said often. And probably everybody here knows what I'm going to say. It's not our time. It's God's time. You know, I couldn't go and plant a garden in the wintertime and expect to get anything out of it. I couldn't go and plant a garden today and expect to be picking watermelon tomorrow. There is a season to harvest. There is a season to harvest. And until, once I plant that seed, until that fruit comes in, there's work to be done. I've got to keep on top of those weeds. I've got to keep the bugs out. I've got to make sure it stays watered. There's work to be done. And sometimes it gets wearisome, and sometimes it gets tiring. Sometimes the sun's hot when you're out there doing all that stuff. And the bugs are flying around, and the mosquitoes are biting you, or whatever. But if you persevere and you keep going, eventually you're going to get the fruit. It's the same. In the spiritual life, you can't quit when you hit the wall. You can't quit when it gets hard. You can't quit when it gets rough. You got to keep banging against the wall, and eventually that wall is going down. In due season, at the right time, we cannot quit. And each and every one of you sitting here in your individual life, whatever it is that you're pursuing, whatever it is that you are after, whatever it is that is your heart's desire, and you've been going for a while, and you get to that wall, do not quit. God promises us, if we do not grow weary, if we persevere, if we keep going, eventually the wall will crumble, and we will get what is on the other side. In due season, we will reap. If we faint not, we cannot quit. We cannot give up. No matter how black it looks, no matter how dark it looks, no matter how it looks like it's impossible, my God promised that if we are not weary, if we do not give up, in due season, we will reap. But this is so key. I got to keep coming back to it. It's so based in what you plant. It's about what you plant. Because that's what you're going to reap. So let us not be weary in well-doing. For in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Ask yourself, what are you sowing? What are you sowing? You want the good fruit? Plant good seed. That's the only way to get it. Mm-hmm. I can't go out and plant thistle seed and get green beans. It won't happen. If I want green beans, I got to plant green beans. If I want blessing, I got to plant blessing. Okay. If I want joy, I got to plant joy. If I want happiness, I got to plant happiness. Right. If I want victory, I got to plant victory. That's how it works. You're going to reap whatever you sow. I so believe the church has lost what it means to be a Christian. The church has lost how to be a Christian. We have gotten to that point where we just want to be comfortable, and we just want to be taken care of, and we just want to be blessed all the time, and all of that. There's got to be a struggle. There has to be. Go through and read the Word with Jesus as our example. Go through and read the things that He said. In every case, before the good comes forth, there is struggle. There's a price that has to be paid. That seed had to give its life in order to grow an apple tree. That seed no longer exists because it gave itself for something greater. And that's what we have to do. But the church today, Christianity today, teaches something entirely different. God gave himself for us. And now we're just going to sit here and scoop it in. He did give himself for us. And now we are to give ourselves for him. And if we do that, according to the word, we will reap. But again, we really need to ask ourselves, what are we sowing? We're all sowing something. And whatever it is we're sowing, that's what we're going to get. So we need to examine ourselves. We need to ask ourselves, what am I sowing? If we sow to the Spirit, we shall of the Spirit reap. But if we sow to the flesh, we're going to reap from the flesh. And I'm going to tell you, there's not one good thing about this flesh. Not one. So whatever is of the flesh is not a good thing to be reaping. Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. You can't quit. You can't give up. You know, I like to watch those cop shows, and you see sometimes where somebody's inside and won't come out, and they got a warrant, and they try to kick the door down. And there's times where they got to kick it a lot of times before that door busts open. What if they kicked it once and it didn't come open, and they say, well, we'll go on. That's what we do. We can't quit. We got to persevere. We got to keep hitting the wall, keep kicking the door, whatever analogy you want to use. Because God said, this is not Brad saying. This is no denominational thing. This is nothing from any man. God said, in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. That's a guarantee. He didn't say maybe, could be, possibly. He said we shall, if we faint not. So if we keep going and we persevere and we don't quit, God said you will reap. Will. In due season. You've got to wait for the right time. It's got to be at the right time of year. Just like I've been using all the analogies for the garden or whatever. You can't pick corn in December. It's got to be in the right season. God knows the season. And again, we've said this, and I've already said it once, but I'll say it again. It's God's time, not our time. But we can't quit. We can't quit. We can't quit. Each and every one of you sitting here, as a child of God, that's a promise to you from God. It's a promise that goes two ways. Whatever you sow. If it's from the flesh, that's what you're getting. If it's of the Spirit, then that's what you're getting. But you're going to get one or the other, because God said, whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. And it's our choice. But we've got to make that conscious effort. We've got to decide this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to sow. We've got to pick the right seed. When you want to plant a garden or an orchard or whatever, you go out and you get the seed for what you want to harvest. God gives us an opportunity to select the seed. It's our choice. We can pick the seed from whatever we want to harvest. So whatever it is that you've been pursuing, whatever it is that you're going after, make sure you're planting the right seed. And then once you plant the seed, you've got to be patient. You can't quit. You can't get weary. When it gets weedy, you got to pull the weeds. When there's rocks, you got to move the rocks. When there's briars, you got to get rid of them. When the birds come, you got to chase them off. When the bugs come, you got to use your pesticide or whatever it is, you got to be doing it until the season comes. And at that time, my God, your God, promises you, you will reap. If you don't quit, if you don't give up, if you don't back off, you will reap. That's a promise to every child of God. I want you to take that and apply it to your life. to your situation, to your circumstance. Now I talked about, here not too long ago, I want to make this very clear. I talked about name it and claim it. That's not what I'm talking about. Name and claim it is, I say it is mine. What I'm talking about, there's a job to do. You got to work. You got to, like I was saying, prepare the soil. You got to pull the weeds. You got to keep the birds and the bugs away. You got to do all that. You got to plant the proper seed. All those things. That's not name it and claim it. The name and claim it movement is, if I'm a child of God, all I got to do is say it and it's mine. That's not what I'm talking about. You all know this. With everything, all the promises of God, there are things we have to do in order to receive those and to reap those. So whatever it is that's in your life, whatever it is that your desire, if it's a godly thing, if it's not a fleshly thing, then you plant that seed and you trust God and you believe God and you work towards that. And you keep working towards that. And just because you don't see it tomorrow, or next week, or next month, or even next year, or 2 years, believe God. Because you will reap in due season if you faint not. That's a promise from God who cannot, does not, will not lie. True. He said it, it's so. And that can apply in every child of God's life. It's not just for particular ones, or special ones, or certain ones. It's for every child of God. So what do you want to harvest? Plant it, then work it, and wait for harvest season, and God will deliver. Now I want to say this, and then I'm going to try to close. That not only applies to each and every individual, it applies to this church. We've been working. We've been trying. A lot of things have failed. A lot of things didn't go right. A lot of things just were not happening. But I'm trusting God because God told me, keep working it. Keep working it. Keep working it. In due season, you shall reap if you faint not. I know there are those of you in here who also have the burden to see this church accomplish something, to see this church go somewhere. We've tried going downtown. We've tried this. We've tried that. We got other things in mind that we're going to try. God says, keep working. You will reap in due season. We can't quit. We can't give up. You know, a lot of time when you got a garden or a field or whatever you want, and you get a dry spell, and you're just thinking everything's going to die, and everything, I ain't going to get anything out of this. Nothing's going to come up. But then eventually the rains come, and stuff gets watered, and it does come up. You know, I believe that we're in a dry season, but I'm going to tell you something. The rain's coming. How do I know that? I believe the word. That's right. God promised me something. If I'm not weary in well-doing, if I sow to the Spirit, in due season, I will reap. That applies to this church too. I know it's frustrating. I know it's aggravating. Probably no more so for anybody than it is for me. But God said, in due season, we will reap. We can't quit. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. And God will bring forth the harvest. I just want to hit a couple of these points again, and then I'll be done. First thing is, if you're going to reap anything, that's what you got to sow. That's what you got to plant. If you want watermelon, you got to plant watermelon. If you want blessings, you got to plant blessings. If you want joy, you got to plant joy. We've got to make sure we're planting the right seed to harvest what it is that we want. So that's the first thing. If you're going to reap it, you got to sow it. Next thing is, examine your seed. Make sure that's what you're planting. Make sure that you are planting the right thing. Once you know that you're planting the right thing, and you've got it out there, and you're trusting God for it, then you can't quit. You can't get weary in well-doing. You can't give up when you hit the wall. And it may seem like a long, long, long time. But trust God. Believe God. And I'm just going to throw this in here. Go back and look at Joseph and look at Daniel and the period of time it took for God to get them from here to where they were really used of God. It's a long process sometimes. So don't quit. Don't give up. Just trust God, believe God, and keep working. Keep working, keep working, and don't give up. And just remember, when you get to that point where it seems like it's never going to happen, and you get to that point where it seems like it's impossible and it's just not going to happen, just remember, you hit the wall enough times, eventually it's going to crack. Once you've got a little crack, you can just keep working and it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually it's going down. And you'll go through, and you'll reap that harvest that God has for you. I often wonder, when I stand up here, when God gives me something, and I stand up here and I look out, why this for these people? God knew exactly who would be here. God knows what's going on in your life. God knows what you would like, what you would want, what your heart's desire is. God sent this message for the people who are sitting here. He didn't send it for somebody over the hill or somebody down yonder. He knew who would be here. God speaks to us. Do we understand? This is a personal thing. This ain't stuff I make up and think it would be good for Sunday. God sends these messages knowing exactly who is going to be here. He is delivering a personal message to you. You need to take it and apply it to your life. And I'm just going to say this while I'm on it. We need to understand and realize how awesome that is, that God would stop by to speak to us and deliver a personal message to us. So when you go and you plant that good seed and you begin to work it and things start going bad, I'm going to give you a warning. Don't say, because there you just planted some seed that's going to choke out the good seed. We got to control ourselves, our thoughts and our actions, our speech, our character, everything. Everything is a part of planting that and eventually reaping that. That's it, I'll stop. I hope you got it the way that God gave it to me.